I worked as a fake boyfriend for a wealthy heiress, earning $4 grand a month. Every holiday, she'd wire me money to come over and put on a show for her parents. Her mother eventually promised me $5 million to marry her, and in a rush of excitement, I spent my entire life savings on a diamond ring. But right in front of the whole family, she tossed the ring I gave her aside. "Mom, stop it. Let me be honest. He's just a rental I hired to deal with you people. I've never liked him." I knew she never liked me, so amidst the laughter of her relatives, I slunk away like a beaten dog. Later, I fell into a depression, and my childhood friend, the girl next door, dragged me out to sit in the sun every day. But then the heiress showed up, eyes red, demanding an answer. "Our contract hasn't expired yet. What gives you the right to just ghost me and get with another woman?" "Il en avance wire de me $1,500. When my phone buzzed, I was in my rental apartment, eating instant noodles, the spicy beef steam stinging my eyes. I glanced at the screen. The contact name was Boss. The transfer note read, "New Year's family dinner. Pick up at the usual spot. BYO wardrobe. Don't blow my cover." I put down my fork and texted back, "Received." My finger hovered over the screen for a long time, but I eventually backspaced, letter by letter, deleting the message. "Any chance for a raise this year?" It wasn't the right time. I'm Mason Cole, 26, unemployed, at least in the eyes of the Vance family. In reality, I had a job, being Elena Vance's boyfriend. Paid by the gig, billed by the hour. Meeting the parents, holiday gatherings, handling surprise inspections regarding her dating life. It was all within my scope of work. Monthly payments averaged about $4,000, though it was unstable. It depended on how frequent Miss Vance's needs were. I've been working this job for 3 years. Ever since Elena's mother threatened suicide to force her into blind dates. Elena dug me out of some corner of the city, slapped down a stack of cash, and a boyfriend rental agreement. The terms were clear, responsibilities defined, and the pay was generous for her. For me, a genuinely unemployed guy at the time, it was lifeline money. So I signed. A 3-year contract. BYO wardrobe meant I had to pay for my own outfits to look the part. I couldn't embarrass the Vance family heiress. I opened my closet. 2 suits hung in the back. One was provided by Elena's assistant before my first shift as a sponsorship. The other I bought myself later, gritting my teeth. It was on sale, but it still cost me 2 months' wages. I usually couldn't bear to wear it, but for today's occasion, I had to wear my own. It was newer. It showed respect. I changed, tie my tie in front of the cracked bathroom mirror. The man in the reflection looked sharp, almost like a stranger. My phone buzzed again. "Elena, hurry up. Mom's rushing me." I ran a hand through my hair, tossed the noodle cup in the trash, and took one last look in the mirror. "Mason Cole, your acting is solid. Keep it up." The usual spot was in front of an absurdly expensive coffee shop downtown. I took the bus, transferred twice, and jogged the last block. I was panting slightly. Elena's car was already there. A sleek black sedan, quiet as a beast, crouching there and looking completely out of place with the surroundings. The window rolled down halfway, revealing Elena's profile. Her makeup was heavier than usual today, her eyeliner swept up sharply. She looked cold, expressionless. I opened the passenger door and slid in, bringing a gust of cold air with me. She didn't look at me, just handed over a velvet box. "Put this on. Hurry." I took it and opened it. Inside was a watch. I didn't recognize the brand, but it looked expensive, heavy, substantial. "Is this necessary?" I tried to decline. "I look fine." "Put on," she repeated, her tone unchanged, but leaving no room for negotiation. "Some difficult relatives are here today. They have sharp eyes." I shut up and strapped the watch to my wrist. The cold metal against my skin made me shiver slightly. The car smelled faintly of her usual perfume, a scent with a bitter, woody bass note. I used to think it smelled nice. Now, after smelling it for so long, it felt suffocating. The car started, sliding smoothly into traffic. For 3 years, our private interactions outside of work mode were almost entirely like this. She was the boss paying the money. I was the employee putting on the act. Aside from script requirements, there was nothing to talk about. "What's the plot today?" I asked, watching the neon city lights blur past the window. "Standard," she said, eyes on the road. "My parents, my aunt, my uncle, and a few cousins. Answer whatever they ask. Don't mention your real situation. Stick to the story I gave you. You're helping out at a friend's design studio, working in art investment." Got it. Got it. I nodded. I'd memorized this backstory for 3 years. I knew it by heart. "They might ask about marriage plans." Elena paused. "Just say it depends on me. You listen to me, no rush." "Understood." And she seemed to hesitate for a split second, Mom's health hasn't been great lately. Don't upset her. Just go along with her. Okay. Silence followed. The car drove into a quiet, gated community of villas, single-family homes with yards. The bare tree branches were strung with fairy lights, giving it a festive atmosphere. But it was too quiet here, quiet to the point of being oppressive. Elena parked in the garage, but didn't get out immediately. She turned her head and looked me square in the eye. Mason. Yeah. Act well, she said, her voice low. Just for tonight. I looked into her eyes. There wasn't much emotion there, but I felt like she seemed a little tired. Don't worry. I forced a smile. I take the money. I do the job. I'm a professional. She turned back and got out. I followed, straightening the hem of my suit, took a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. Walking through that heavy solid wood door, I was already Mason Cole, Elena's boyfriend of 3 years, emotionally stable, career on a rise. The heating was cranked up inside. Waves of warmth wrapped in the smell of food and expensive incense hit my face. Voices drifted from the living room. Elena changed her shoes, naturally slipping her hand through the crook of my arm. My body stiffened imperceptibly, then relaxed, adjusting my posture to match hers. This was one of our standard work physical interactions. We practiced. Elena's back. An enthusiastic, middle-aged female voice greeted us. It was Elena's mother, Mrs. Vance. She was wearing high-quality loungewear, a smile on her face, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes showing gentleness. Her gaze landed on me, and her smile deepened. Mason's here, too. Come in. It's hold out, right? Hello, Mrs. Vance. Not too cold. The car was warm. I replied with a smile, handing over the gift bag I was carrying. I heard you've been sleeping lightly, so I brought some vintage wine. A friend brought it back from Vineyard. It helps with relaxation. The wine wasn't expensive, but I had spent time choosing it yesterday, and the packaging was tasteful. Mrs. Vance took it, saying thank you repeatedly, and pulled me toward the living room. You shouldn't have brought anything. You're such a thoughtful boy. Several people were sitting on the living room sofas. Elena's father, Robert Vance, sat in the main seat, reading a newspaper through his glasses. He looked up and nodded at me, which counted as a greeting. Next to him was Elena's aunt, decked out in jewelry, her eyes scanning me up and down with scrutiny. There was also a middle-aged man I didn't recognize, likely her uncle. The younger ones were cousins. Hello, Mr. Vance. Hello, Annie. Hello, Uncle. I greeted them one by one, my smile impeccable. Elena sat next to her mom, and I naturally took the single armchair beside her. So, Mason. Elena's aunt spoke up, her voice a bit shrill. Elena says you're doing our investment now? What exactly do you do? Here we go. I sat up straight and spun the career description I'd fabricated countless times. My tone was humble yet confident, neither exaggerating nor showing weakness. Elena held her teacup, occasionally adding a sentence or two when I paused, acting like she knew my work well and supported it fully. We were a seamless team. Her uncle asked a few questions about market prospects. They weren't too tricky, and I handled them easily. Elena's dad didn't say much, just glanced at me occasionally with a deep, unreadable look. When the questioning lulled, Mrs. Vance ushered everyone to the dining room. The long table was full of dishes, exquisite as artwork. As we sat, Elena naturally used chopsticks to place some food on my plate. Try this. It's the chef's specialty, she whispered, her tone unusually gentle. I nodded, that weird feeling bubbling up again. Was she acting a little too hard today? The atmosphere at the table was harmonious. Mrs. Vance did most of the talking, asking about her daily life, complaining that Elena was too busy to come home, and praising me for my good temper and tolerance. Elena occasionally bickered back, mother-daughter banter that looked like typical family warmth. I smiled and listened, chiming in at the right moments, playing the role of the patient, considerate boyfriend. Elena, Mason, Mrs. Vance put down her fork, wiped her mouth, and looked at us. Her smile was complicated, like she had made a decision. You two have been together for 3 years. You're not getting any younger, and your relationship is stable. Your father and I discussed it. She paused, looking at Robert. Mr. Vance nodded slightly. Mrs. Vance pulled a thick document envelope from beside her and slid it in front of Elena and me. My heart inexplicably skipped a beat. This is $5 million. Mrs. Vance's voice was calm, but it felt like a bomb going off in my brain. And some company stock transfer agreements. Mason, you and Elena should get engaged. Consider this a wedding gift from your father and me. The dining room went terrifyingly quiet. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. $5 million? For us. I stiffly turned my neck to look at Elena. She had no expression on her face, just staring at the envelope, her lips pressed into a tight line. Her aunt sucked in a breath, her eyes instantly changing, darting between me and the envelope with disbelief and a vague jealousy. Her uncle was stunned too, frowning. The cousins widened their eyes, whispering, "Mom." Elena finally spoke, her voice dry. "What is the meaning of this?" "What meaning?" Mrs. Vance's eyes reddened slightly. She took Elena's hand. "Elena, Mom knows you have high standards. In the past, we were wrong to push you too hard to get married. But these past 3 years I've watched. Mason is a good man. He's sincere about you. Your relationship is good. That's better than anything. This money is security for your marriage and a token of our love." She looked at me again, her eyes eager. "Mason, I know your family background is ordinary, but it doesn't matter. We don't care about that. As long as you treat Elena well, none of that matters. If you two settle down soon, the weight on my heart will finally be lifted. My health really hasn't been good lately, and I just hope to see you married." She didn't finish, but the meaning was clear. I looked at the envelope, then at Elena, then at the varying expressions around the table. My brain was in chaos. 3 years, acting for $1,000 a month, rental contract, colliding madly with the $5 million in front of me. Elena didn't speak, she just looked at me. Her gaze was deep. I couldn't read it. But I suddenly remembered what she said in the car. Act well, just for tonight, and that her mom was sick. An absurd and pathetic hope sprouted like a vine from the darkest corner of my heart. Could it be that these 3 years weren't entirely acting? Could she actually like me? My throat tightened, palms sweating. My heart hammered against my ribs, making them ache. Under the complex gaze of everyone, I made a move that, in hindsight, was utterly idiotic. I put down my napkin, my hand shaking slightly, reached into my suit's inner pocket, and pulled out a small box. A box I had hidden for a long time, bought with almost all the wages I had saved over 3 years after basic expenses. Velvet, ordinary, even a bit shabby. I stood up. Because I moved too abruptly, the chair legs scraped the floor with a harsh sound. But I didn't care. I walked over to Elena, and under everyone's shocked gaze, I knelt on one knee, a bit clumsily but tried to be solemn. I opened the box. Inside was a diamond ring. The diamond was small, a cluster of chips really, trying its best to twinkle under the brilliant crystal chandelier of the dining room. It was the best one I could afford after searching and searching. I looked up at Elena. Her face was a bit blurry in the light. I couldn't see her expression clearly. I heard my own voice dry, tight, carrying a tremor, and hoped that I hadn't even realized myself. "Elena," I said, "these 3 years. I wanted to say, these 3 years I was serious. I wanted to say, I'm not in it for the money. I wanted to say, could you possibly?" The words stuck in my throat, burning, but they wouldn't come out. I just held up that shabby box, looking up at her, like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. Dead silence in the dining room. A few seconds later, Elena moved. She didn't take the box. She didn't even look at the ring again. She reached out, not for me, but to pick up the document envelope with a $5 million agreement on the table. Then, under my frozen gaze, under everyone's breathless watch, she grabbed a corner of the envelope. Rip! A clear, tooth-aching sound. The thick paper was torn open by her, mercilessly. Once then again, the $5 million turned into several, then dozens of torn pieces in her hands. The fragments fluttered down, landing on the polished table, the floor, and some drifting onto the knee I was kneeling on. My hand holding the ring box froze in midair, growing cold and numb. Elena's voice rang out calm. Calm to the point of cruelty. She was speaking to her mother, but her eyes swept over me like glancing at an insignificant piece of furniture. "Mom, stop it." She curled her lip, the arc somewhere between mockery and resignation. "To be honest, he's just a guy I rented to deal with you people. $4,000 a month. The contract expires at the end of the year." She paused, her gaze finally landing on my face, then sliding to the ridiculous ring box in my hand. "As for this ring," she gave a light laugh. "Street vendor trash, right? Mason, did you take the acting a little too far?" Time seemed to solidify. I could feel everyone's eyes like red-hot needles stabbing my back, my face stabbing the ring box I was still holding up. My knee pressed against the cold, hard floor, hurting, but the pain was nothing compared to the sharp, ringing that exploded in my head after the blankness. Rented. $4,000 a month. Street vendor trash. Acting too far. Every word was distinct, carrying her characteristic, slightly cold tone, smashing into my ears, making me dizzy. The light from the expensive crystal chandelier suddenly seemed blindingly bright, making my eyes sting and swell. I slowly lowered my head, looking at the velvet box in my hand. The tiny flower, made of diamond chips, was still trying to shine. But this light, right now, looked so laughable. As laughable as me, kneeling here. I could hear her aunt's exaggerated gasp, then a short, suppressed laugh. Her uncle coughed and looked away. The cousins were whispering openly, curiosity, shock, and disdain falling on me without concealment. Mrs. Vance's face instantly went pale. She clutched her chest, looking at Elena, then at me, lips trembling, unable to speak. Robert Vance slammed the table and stood up, face furious. Elena, what kind of nonsense are you talking about? Elena ignored her dad. She didn't even look at me again, as if she had just casually torn up some waste paper and said something irrelevant. She pulled out a tissue and wiped her hands, as if she had touched something dirty when tearing the envelope. Mom, you see now, she said to Mrs. Vance, her tone almost relaxed. He's just a contract worker. Don't worry about it, and stop wasting money. I know what I'm doing with my life. Mrs. Vance pointed at her, fingers shaking, unable to catch her breath, and began coughing violently. Only then did Elena frown slightly, stepping forward to pat her back. Mom, calm down, think of your health. Chaos. Humiliation. A cold numbness started from my fingertips, crawled up my arms, along my spine, freezing my limbs. I was still kneeling, like a moron. I don't know who laughed first, low, but exceptionally clear in the dead silence. Then, as if a switch was flipped, scattered laughter fell like cold rain. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them again, my vision was blurry. I pushed against the floor, wanting to stand up. My leg was numb. I stumbled and almost fell back to my knees. No one helped me. I steadied myself and slowly straightened up. There were a few pieces of white paper confetti on my knee, fragments of that 5 million. I brushed them, but they didn't come off. Forget it. I lowered my head and slowly closed the lid of the tiny ring box. Click. A soft sound. Then, I clenched it in my palm. The corners of the box dug into my skin, hurting a little. I didn't look at anyone, didn't say a word. I turned and walked toward the main door. My steps were a bit floaty, but one by one they were steady. Behind me came Elena's voice, seeming to explain something to her parents, her tone impatient. And her aunt's shrill, conciliatory voice. Oh, Elena, how could you treat your boyfriend like that? But I guess it makes sense, you two aren't from the same world. Those voices, mixed with faint laughter, buzzed, getting farther and farther away. I pulled open the door. The cold winter night wind rushed in with a whoosh, instantly piercing through the thin suit I wore for show. It was so cold. I walked out, closing the door behind me, shutting all the lights, the warmth, the noise, and that suffocating laughter behind me. The road in the villa complex was quiet, the streetlights dim. I walked slowly back the way I came. My hand stayed clenched, the ring box digging deep into my flesh, but I still felt cold, chills seeping out from my bones. Walking to the complex gate, the security guard in the booth glanced at me. Probably because I looked terrible, he opened his mouth but didn't say anything. I kept walking to the bus stop. The last bus hadn't come yet. The platform was empty. I leaned against a freezing billboard, fished a cigarette pack from my pocket, shook one out, and lit it. I took a deep drag. The harshness of cheap tobacco rushed into my lungs, choking me into a coughing fit until tears came out. I wiped my face. It was wet. Ah! I screamed silently at the sky, looking at the pitch-black darkness. No stars, just the muddy halo of the city. The red light of the cigarette but flickered at my fingertips. A black sedan silently glided up to me and stopped. The window rolled down. It was Elena. She had no expression on her face, watching me through the glass. Get in, she said, her voice drifting a bit in the cold wind. I didn't move, just looked at her. She frowned. You can't get a cab out here. I'll drive you back. I took another drag of the cigarette, threw the butt on the ground, and crushed it with my shoe. Then, I opened the door and sat in the back seat. Not the passenger seat anymore. Elena glanced at me in the rearview mirror, said nothing, and started the car. The interior still had that faint woody perfume scent, but smelling it now, I just felt sick. The ride was silent. The car drove into the old district where I lived and stopped at the entrance of the alley. It was too narrow for the car to enter. I pushed the door open to get out. Mason, she called me. I held the door, not turning back. About today, her voice came from behind, devoid of emotion. It was an accident. I'll handle my mom. It won't affect your payment. I'll pay you for this month, and I'll give you an extra 3 months' worth as compensation. I listened and didn't speak. The contract has less than a month left, she continued. During this time, if there's a need, I'll contact you. If not, then that's it. I nodded to show I understood. Then I shut the car door. Without looking at her again, I turned and walked into the dim, damp alley. Her car stayed there for a moment, headlights illuminating a short stretch of the potholed road ahead of me. Then the lights cut out, the engine purred low, and the car turned around and drove away. Darkness swallowed everything again. I fumbled in the dark, step by step, treading over the familiar stone path that smelled of stale water, until I reached the entrance of my building. The motion sensor light in the stairwell had been broken for a long time. No one ever fixed it. I fished out my keys, used a faint light from my phone screen, and poked around a few times before opening the rusty iron gate. I climbed to the 6th floor, opened my door. A smell mixed of instant noodles and dust, the unique scent of my small rental, rushed out. I didn't turn on the light. I closed the door behind me, leaned back against the cold panel, and slid down to sit on the floor. In my hand, I was still gripping that ring box tightly. Slowly, I lifted it to my eyes. In the faint light leaking in from the building opposite, I opened the box. The small flower made of diamond chips was dim and lifeless, like a ridiculous dream I'd been having for 3 years, for which I'd finally woken up. I snapped the box shut and threw it. It hit the corner of the wall with a soft thud. Then I hugged my head and buried my face in my knees. In the darkness, I was finally alone. No need to act anymore. I'll live in a daze for a while. My phone was quiet. Elena didn't contact me again. I did get a bank notification, a deposit. The amount was several times the usual. I glanced at it and threw the phone aside. I lay on the bed, staring at a water stain on the ceiling that looked like some weird pattern, watching it for a long time. I didn't want to eat, didn't want to move. My brain flashed between Elena's cold profile as she tore the document, the mocking eyes of her relatives, and that shabby ring I'd thrown in the corner. Finally, all the images blurred, leaving only emptiness. In the afternoon, someone knocked on the door. It was rapid, impatient knocking. I lay there without moving. The person knocked for a while longer, then I heard the landlady, Mrs. Higgins, shouting with her booming voice, "Mason, are you there? Open up. I know you're in there. When are you paying this month's rent? It's been days. If you don't open up, I'm calling someone to pry the lock." Only then did I slowly climb up, swaying to the door, and opened it. Mrs. Higgins stood outside with her hands on her hips. Seeing me, she froze, probably because I looked frightening, unshaven, eyes sunken, clothes wrinkled. "Mason, are you okay?" Her tone softened a bit, but she immediately stiffened her face again. "I'm not trying to rush you, but you know this apartment is in demand. If you don't rent it, plenty of people are waiting. Look at this rent. I'll give it to you tomorrow." I interrupted her, my voice so hoarse it sounded strange to me. "Tomorrow, definitely." Mrs. Higgins looked at me skeptically, but eventually muttered and left. Closing the door, I leaned against it and sighed. Right, rent needs to be paid. I need to eat. The show is over. Life has to go on. I picked up the phone from where I'd thrown it. The screen was cracked, probably from a drop I didn't remember. I unlocked it and opened a job hunting app. The last time I seriously looked for a job was 3 years ago. Back then, fresh out of college, arrogant, I hit wall after wall, and then Elena appeared with that contract. Now, back to square one. Even worse than square one. I refreshed the page, looking at positions requiring work experience, relevant skills, bachelor's degree, or higher. I scrolled for a long time before finding something with a low threshold. Warehouse associate. Housing included, low pay, but immediate start. I noted the contact info and dialed. A man with a rough voice answered, asked a few simple questions, and hearing I could start anytime, told me to come over that afternoon to check it out. I washed my face, changed into cleaner clothes, looked at the haggard, defeated man in the mirror, and rubbed my face hard. I went out. The warehouse was on the outskirts of the city, huge, chaotic, the air filled with the smell of dust and machine oil. The manager was a bald, middle-aged guy. He sized me up, pointed to a pile of goods in the corner. "Sort these by number today. Can you do it?" I nodded. "Be quick about it. Pay is by the piece. No money for slacking." He dropped that line and walked off. I rolled up my sleeves and started working. Manual labor, no brain needed, just repeat, repeat, repeat. Sweat soon soaked my clothes, dust choked my nose, and my arms trembled from constantly lifting heavy objects. But I actually felt a kind of relief. When the body is exhausted, the mess in the brain quiets down for a while. I worked until dark when the dim yellow lights of the warehouse came on. The bald man came over to check, nodded, and counted out a few wrinkled bills for me. "That's it for today. Come earlier tomorrow." I took the money, said thanks, and left dragging my body that felt like it was falling apart. On the bus back, people were packed in, a mix of smells. I leaned against the window, watching the neon lights retreat rapidly outside, clutching the sweaty bills in my hand. This was the life I should have. Real, messy, struggling with everything I had just for a bite to eat. Time to face reality. 3 years was just a stolen, unrealistic dream. Now, the dream was over. Back in the rental, I was too tired to even shower. I threw myself directly onto the bed. Muscles ached, but my mind was unusually clear. In the dark, my eyes were open. Beside the pillow, my phone screen lit up. I picked it up. It was a friend request on social media. The profile picture was a starry sky. The nickname, a simple H. Verification message. Mason, it's Harper Evans. Mrs. Vance mentioned you're back in the area? Add me. Harper Evans. The name spun in my head for a few seconds before matching a slightly blurry face in my memory. Old neighbor, 2 years younger than me. A tag-along who used to run behind me when we were kids. Later, my family moved, and we lost touch. How'd you find me? I tapped accept. Almost immediately, a message came through. Harper, it really is you. I thought Annie might be pulling my leg. Followed by a sticker of a cat peeking out. My finger hovered over the screen. I replied, Harper, where are you living now? Still in the old neighborhood? I visited my aunt a few days ago and ran into your mom. She was complaining to my mom that she couldn't reach you and was a bit worried. I stared at the word worried. My heart felt nothing. When I insisted on staying in this city, I had a huge fight with my family. Later, doing that shady job, I was too ashamed to contact them, just sending money periodically to say I was alive. Harper, why aren't you talking? Are you okay? Me, I'm fine. Just busy with work. Harper, oh, I heard from Annie that you were doing that thing, making good money? Not doing it anymore. I felt a prick in my heart. Even the old neighbors knew. What did my mom say? Me, yeah, not doing it. Harper showed, typing. For a while before sending. Good. That job sounded sketchy anyway. What do you do now? I looked at the message, remembering the grime on my face at the warehouse today. I pulled a self-deprecating smile. Me, found a legit job. Just started. Harper, really? That's great. Where? Doing what? Me, suburbs. Warehouse. Another pause on the other end. Harper, is it tiring? Me, it's okay. The conversation was dry. I didn't know what to say to her. We hadn't seen each other in so long. There were years of blank space between us, plus the mess of my current situation. Harper didn't seem to feel the awkwardness. She sent another message. By the way, I work in the city too, not too far from you. Free this weekend? Let me buy you dinner. Haven't seen you in ages. Let's catch up. I intended to refuse, but I deleted the words I had typed. Looking at this cold, quiet room, remembering the noise and loneliness of the warehouse today, driven by some ghost, I replied, sure. Harper immediately sent a happy sticker and set a time and place. It's a date then. Don't you dare flake on me. Putting down the phone, the room fell silent again. After several gloomy days, the city finally saw the sun, although the light was pale and offered little warmth. I followed the address Harper sent and found a small bistro. It was crowded and steamy at mealtime. I stood at the entrance looking around and saw a girl stand up by the window, waving at me. Mason, over here. It was Harper Evans. Compared to the scrawny little kid from childhood, she had changed a lot. Her hair was cut short to her shoulders, neat and fresh. She wore a simple beige sweater and jeans. Her eyes were bright, and when she smiled, she had 2 shallow dimples. She looked clean and comfortable. I åkte over. She pulled out the chair opposite her. Seat. Was traffic bad? It was okay. I sat down, feeling a bit awkward. I hadn't seen her in so long, I didn't know what attitude to adopt. She was very natural, pushing the menu toward me. See what you want? Their stir-fry is good, especially the spicy seafood stew. I've been craving it. I took the menu and ordered 2 simple dishes randomly. She handed the menu to the waiter, then rested her chin in her hands, eyes curving as she looked at me. I really didn't expect to run into you. Your mom was worried that day, said you hadn't called home in a long time and she couldn't get through to you. I touched my nose. Phone. Lost signal. Bull. She wrinkled her nose, calling me out, but her tone wasn't harsh. Work too busy? Or did something happen? My heart skipped a beat. I looked up at her. Her eyes were clear, carrying some concern, but no prying or pity. Just a normal greeting between old friends. Nothing. I looked away. Just change jobs, adjustment period. Oh, the warehouse, right? She nodded. Is it tiring? I had a classmate who did that, said it was physically draining. It's fine. You get used to it. The food arrived quickly. The spicy seafood stew was bright red with oil, smelling amazing. Harper could handle spice, She inhaled sharply while stuffing her mouth, sweat beading on her nose. So good. She gulped down some iced tea, eyes sparkling. Eat, don't just watch me. I picked up my chopsticks and grabbed a piece of fish. It tasted good, numbing my scalp, but appetizing. What are you doing now? I asked, trying to steer the topic away from me. Me? I'm doing graphic design at a small company. She picked up a vegetable. Just drawing, designing, scraping by. Can't compare to you guys. Us guys? I pulled the corner of my mouth. What is there to compare? Why not? She blinked. When we were kids, you were the king of the neighborhood. Climbing trees, raiding bird nests, fighting the fiercest, and getting good grades. My mom always used you to lecture me. I paused. Those distant, faded memories seemed to be polished a little brighter by her words. That's ancient history. I shook my head. Doesn't matter when awesome is awesome, she laughed. But you seem change a lot now. My hand holding the food paused. Really? Yeah. She looked at me, nodding seriously. Feel like you don't smile as much as when you were a kid, and you're not so reckless. More steady, but also, you seem a bit tired. She spoke bluntly, but her tone was peaceful, as natural as saying the weather is nice today. I didn't know how to respond. People change when they grow up, I guess. I said dryly in the end. Suppose so. She didn't dig deeper, shifting to funny stories about her work, complaining about difficult clients, roasting weird colleagues. Her tone was lively and vivid. I listened, occasionally agreeing. The meal actually wasn't awkward. She seemed to have a magic power to naturally drive the atmosphere, never letting the conversation drop or making anyone feel offended. After eating, she fought to pay the bill. Said I'd treat you. She waved her phone. Next time you treat me back, deal? Walking out of the restaurant, the afternoon sun was warm, shining on us, dispelling some of the chill in my bones. Got plans? She asked. If not, walk with me? I want to buy some things. I thought about it. The warehouse was off today. Going back meant staring at four walls. Sure. We walked slowly along the street. It was a commercial strip, busy with people. She just browsed, looking at window displays, trying on clothes, occasionally picking up a trinket to ask my opinion. I had no aesthetic sense, and usually just said, it's okay. She didn't mind, enjoying herself. Passing a jewelry store, my steps unconsciously halted. In the window, under brilliant lights, jewelry sparkled. A diamond ring was placed in the most prominent spot, the main stone huge, perfectly cut, refracting cold, dazzling light under the spotlight. Harper followed my gaze and looked over. Whoa, she murmured. So shiny, but feels like it'd be annoying to wear. I didn't speak. In my pocket, that velvet box I'd retrieved and never opened again seemed to suddenly turn scalding hot, branding my skin. Let's go. Nothing to see. I withdrew my gaze and walked forward. Harper caught up, glanced at my profile, but said nothing. We walked a bit more, and she suddenly pointed ahead. Look, a roasted nut cart. Haven't had those in forever. She jogged over and bought a bag, steaming hot. Here, she stuffed half into my hands. Hand warmer. The nuts wrapped in paper transmitted heat to my palm. It was warm. I cracked one open. The meat was golden and full, sweet and soft. Good, right? She cracked one herself, cheeks puffing out. Yeah. We found a roadside bench to sit on, basking in the sun, eating nuts. The sun made me feel lazy, and the street noise seemed to recede. I leaned back, squinting. This seemed to be the first time in days I felt a little peace. No acting, no tension, no facing those suffocating gazes and words. Just sitting, eating a bag of roasted nuts. Mason. Harper suddenly spoke, her voice soft. If. She paused, looking at the half-peeled nut in her hand. If you have something on your mind, don't bottle it up alone. Saying it out might make it easier. I didn't make a sound. Of course, it's okay not to say it, she smiled. Then just soak up the sun. My mom used to say, sunlight replenishes your energy, burns away all the bad luck. She turned to look at me, eyes sparkling in the sun. If you're unhappy and don't want to talk, just find me to soak up the sun. I'll keep you company. Free of charge, unlimited supply. The wind blew, carrying the chill of early winter, but the sun was indeed warm. Okay. The next day, a small park by the river, practically empty. A few benches facing the water. The afternoon sun spilled down warmly. The river surface shimmered with fragmented gold light, a bit blinding, but comfortable. We sat side by side on the bench, neither speaking. The river wind blew over, carrying moisture, cool, but with the sun shining, it wasn't cold. I leaned back, closing my eyes. The sound of wind, the slow flow of the river, and the faint traffic in the distance. Very quiet. My mind was rarely this peaceful. It was as if those rotten things, those embarrassing memories, were scattered a bit by the sun and wind. Comfy. Harper's voice sounded next to me, soft. Yeah. Her voice held a hint of a smile. Watching the river, soaking in the sun, feels like any worry can be washed away, melted down. I opened my eyes and looked at her. She was in profile, watching the river. The sunlight played at a soft, golden rim on the fine fuzz of her cheek. Mason. She suddenly called my name. You weren't like this before, she said, tone flat, like saying nice weather. I didn't speak. When we were kids, you were so fierce, afraid of nothing. She looked at the river, eyes drifting. I remember once, big kids from the next block bullied the kids in our yard. You rushed up alone, 3 against 1. You got beaten black and blue, but wouldn't yield. Finally scared them all off. Back then, I thought you were amazing, like a little hero. She laughed, a bit shyly. Although you're fine now too, but I just feel like you're crushed under so many things. You don't smile anymore. My throat felt blocked. People have to grow up, I whispered after a long while. Does growing up mean bottling everything up? She asked back, turning to look at me earnestly. Mason, I'm not trying to dig into your business. I just think, if you want to talk, I'm listening. If you don't, then don't. But don't carry everything yourself. The river wind blew her hair, brushing her cheek. Her eyes were bright, clear enough to reflect my shadow. A shadow retreating into a shell, wretched and defeated. I looked away, toward the glittering river. I opened my mouth, but found the words stuck in my chest like a tangled mess, impossible to unravel. Where to begin? Talk about my laughable job of 3 years? Talk about the kneeling and humiliation like a fool that night? Talk about the cheap diamond ring I threw in the corner, never to be given? It was too absurd. Absurd to the point I couldn't say it. Forget it. I finally just shook my head, forcing a smile. It's nothing. It's in the past. Harper looked at me for a moment, didn't press further. She leaned back again, looking at the river. Fine, if you won't say, you won't say. Her voice was light. Then let's sunbathe. Burn off the bad stuff. We sat in silence for a while longer. The sun dipped westward little by little, stretching our shadows long. I turned to look at her. She didn't look at me, still watching the river, a shallow smile on her lips. The golden sunlight fell on her, fuzzy and warm. Contact with Harper became a fixed, bright exit in my gray life. We didn't see each other every day, but every few days, she'd message. Sometimes trivial nonsense, sometimes asking me out for the weekend. Outings were always the same. Eating, walking, soaking up the sun. Bland to the point of boring. But I seemed to start relying on this boredom. It was real, stable, within reach. Unlike those 3 years, glamorous, but walking a tightrope, never knowing when I'd fall and shatter. In a blink, half a month passed. The date my rental contract with Elena would expire was getting closer. Night, I was working overtime at the warehouse, counting a rush shipment. I worked until late. My phone was on silent, tossed aside. By the time I finished, it was nearly 11. Dragging my body that felt ready to fall apart, I walked out of the warehouse. The night wind blew, making me shiver. I fished out my phone to check the time, only to find over a dozen missed calls on the screen. All from the same, unknown number. Local area code. My heart skipped a beat. Who would look for me so urgently at this hour? As I thought, the screen lit up again. Same number. I frowned and answered. Hello. The other end was quiet, just faint static. Mason. A female voice spoke. Cold, familiar, carrying a trace of imperceptible tension. It was Elena. My fingers gripping the phone tightened unconsciously. The cold I had deliberately ignored and suppressed surged up my spine instantly. Who is this? I heard my voice, calm to the point of being unfamiliar. Silence on the other end for 2 seconds. Elena's voice seemed colder. Did you delete my number? Phone broke, lost contacts. I leaned against the cold wall. The night wind made my forehead ache. What's up? She paused again, seemingly choked by my cold tone, but soon, that habitual commanding tone returned. Come over here. I'll send you the address. I almost laughed out of anger. Miss Vance. I pulled the corner of my mouth, though she couldn't see. It's 11 at night. I have work tomorrow. And I paused, enunciating clearly. If I recall correctly, our contract expires in 3 days. I have no obligation to be on call. Mason. Her voice pitched up sharply, angry. What is this attitude? I told you to come over. What attitude? I heard my voice turn cold too. The attitude of money for service. The transaction is done. The contract is ending. Naturally, the attitude ends. Miss Vance, if there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. It's late. Don't you dare hang up. She interrupted hurriedly. Her breathing came through the receiver, a bit heavy. Mason, I need you to come over. Right now. Need me? I repeated the word, finding it incredibly ironic. Need me to play your boyfriend? appease your parents, or need me to continue being a clown in front of your relatives? You. She seemed stung, her voice sharp for a second, but quickly suppressed it, carrying a strange, almost exhausted hardness. Don't ask so many questions. Come here. The pay. I could double it. No. Triple. Just come tonight. Triple. One night, probably more than my monthly warehouse wage. So generous. Elena. I slowly said her name. I rarely used her full name before. Usually, it was a respectful Miss Vance or pet names for the act. Do you really think money can buy everything? Do you think that as long as you open your mouth and add money, Mason Cole will appear instantly wagging his tail like a dog? What do you take me for? The other end went completely silent, only her suppressed, slightly rapid breathing. After several seconds, her voice sounded again, very soft, carrying a near-weak tremor I hadn't heard before. Mason, just this once. The last time. Consider it. Me begging you. Begging me? The high and mighty heiress would use the word beg with me. I gripped the phone, nails digging deep into my palm. The cold night wind poured in my collar, cooling my heated brain a little. I closed my eyes. Flashing before me was her cold profile, tearing the document. Those mocking gazes, the shabby diamond ring in the corner. Then, flashing before me, was the clean handkerchief embroidered with a ginkgo leaf that Harper handed me. The warm afternoon sun by the river, and her sparkling eyes. I'm sorry, Miss Vance. I opened my eyes, looking at the solitary, dim streetlight at the warehouse gate. I don't want her business anymore. I didn't wait for her reaction. I hung up directly. Then, I dragged this unknown number into the block list. Crisp and clean. Doing all this, I realized my hands were trembling slightly. It was an indescribable emotion, like breaking free of invisible shackles or personally severing the last ridiculous connection. The cold wind still blew. I took a deep breath. The icy air poured into my lungs, bringing a sharp clarity. I stuffed the phone back in my pocket, tightened my thin jacket, and walked into the heavy night. My steps were heavier than ever, yet lighter than ever. Elena and I, and those absurd 3 years, were finally completely over. Weekend. My day off. Harper invited me to a small art exhibition, said a friend organized it, needed support. I agreed. The exhibition was in an art district converted from an old factory. Not many people, very quiet. The paintings were mostly abstract. I didn't really get them, but the combination of colors and lines had a tension that kept it from being boring. Harper looked seriously, occasionally whispering explanations to me, what emotion a color represented, where the inspiration for a line came from. When she spoke, her eyes were bright. Her profile under the soft gallery lights looked very focused. I listened, but my gaze involuntarily fell more on her face. Looking at the art was fake. Looking at her seemed to be the truth. When this thought popped up, I stunned myself. I quickly looked away, pretending to be deeply interested in a huge painting filled with dark red patches in front of me. This piece is called Trapped Beast. Harper's voice sounded in my ear, startling me. The artist says it depicts the feeling of being trapped in a cubicle, repeating the same life every day. Look at these lines, don't they look like a cage? I looked where she pointed. Those twisted, intersecting black lines indeed looked like a net. Trap Beast. I used to think what trapped me was poverty, reality. Later I thought it was that ridiculous contract, Elena. Now I vaguely felt maybe what trapped me was just myself. After the exhibition, we wandered around the art district. There were many interesting small shops selling handmade crafts, old books, and a tiny coffee shop wafting rich bean aroma. Coffee, Harper suggested. We walked in. The shop was tiny, only 3 or 4 tables. We picked a window seat. She ordered a latte. I asked for an Americano. When arrived, I took a sip, bitter enough to make me frown. Harper saw my expression and snuck a laugh, pushing the sugar pot over. Add some sugar? I shook my head. No need. The bitterness wakes you up. She didn't insist, sipping her latte, watching the sparse pedestrians outside. The atmosphere was quiet, not awkward. Just as I was slowly getting used to the bitterness of the Americano, even finding a sweet aftertaste, the coffee shop door was pushed open. The wind chime on the door rang clearly. I instinctively looked up. Then, my body froze imperceptibly. The person entering was Elena. She wore a sharply tailored beige trench coat, hair slightly curled, makeup exquisite. She looked completely out of place in this slightly cramped, artsy little coffee shop. She stood at the door, gaze sweeping coldly across the shop. Then, accurately, it landed on me. No, it landed on me and Harper. Her eyes, the moment she saw Harper, instantly went cold like dipped in ice. Harper had her back to the door and didn't see, still talking to me. Want to check out that bookstore next door later? Heard they have a lot of out-of-print books. Her voice stopped when she noticed my stiffness and distraction. Mason. She turned her head in confusion, following my gaze, and saw Elena at the door. Elena had already started walking over. High heels on the wooden floor made clear, unhurried, clicking sounds. Click, click. Every step felt like it was stepping on my nerves. She stopped at our table. Her gaze first landed on my face. It was deep, heavy, roiling with emotions I couldn't read, but the surface ice was thick. Then, she turned to Harper, scanning her up and down. That look carried a condescending scrutiny, like assessing the value of an object. Harper clearly felt this unfriendly gaze. She frowned slightly, but didn't speak, just quietly looking back at Elena. Mason, Elena spoke. Her voice was her usual coldness, but seemed heavier than normal. Aren't you going to introduce this lady? My fingers on the coffee cup tightened. The warm ceramic pressed against my palm, but couldn't dispel the chill rising in my heart. How'd she find me here? Stalking me? Miss Vance, I heard my voice steady enough. Do you have business? I can't come find you if I don't have business. Elena raised an eyebrow slightly, an expression saying you asked a stupid question. Hung up on me last night, blocked me too. Mason, you're getting brave. Did I give you too much leeway? Her tone was flat, but the content made Harper's eyes widen in surprise as she looked at me. I felt my cheeks heat up, embarrassment and anger. Our cooperation has ended, Miss Vance. I thought I made it very clear. Blocking a former employer to avoid unnecessary disturbance is my freedom. Former employer? Elena repeated the term, the corner of her mouth hooking into a very faint, mocking arc. Mason, the contract still has 3 days. Ghosting unilaterally during the contract period, blocking the client. Can I interpret this as you wanting to breach the contract? I explicitly refused your additional request last night. The contract naturally terminates. I looked at her without backing down. Perhaps because Harper was there, or perhaps provoked by her aggressive attitude. The anger I'd suppressed for so long threatened to erupt. Additional request. Elena's gaze fell on Harper again, pointedly. So is it because you found new business that you're so eager to dump the old employer? Show some respect. I raised my voice abruptly, hands slapping the table. Coffee sloshed out. The few other customers looked over. Harper reached out, gently pressing on my arm. Her hand was warm, carrying a calming strength. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to cool down. Arguing with Elena here was meaningless. It would only embarrass Harper. Elena watched Harper's hand on my arm, her eyes growing even colder. She stopped looking at me and turned to Harper, her tone softening slightly, but the condescension remaining. Miss, sorry, my boyfriend and I have some private matters to discuss. Could you give us a moment? Boyfriend. Harper's hand on my arm stiffened slightly. She looked up at Elena, expressionless, but her eyes were calm, showing no fear. Miss, Harper spoke, voice not loud but clear. I think you're mistaken. First, Mason is not your boyfriend right now. Second, she paused, meeting Elena's gaze squarely. We were here first. If you have business with him, you can wait until he finishes this coffee with me. Or you can wait outside. Asking me to leave seems inappropriate. Neither humble nor arrogant, completely reasonable. Elena probably didn't expect such a response. She clearly paused, then narrowed her eyes, reevaluating Harper. 2 women, one exquisite and dominant, one gentle but firm, faced off silently. The tension in the air was thick enough to explode. Caught in the middle, I felt it was utterly absurd and incredibly annoying. Elena. I stood up, blocking Harper, cutting off Elena's line of sight. What is between us has nothing to do with anyone else. If you have something to say it outside. Elena looked at my action of shielding Harper, and her face went completely dark. She stared at me for several seconds, a look so complex it startled me. Anger, coldness, maybe a trace of disbelief. Then, she said nothing. She turned abruptly, heels striking the floor with rapid, forceful sounds, and walked out without looking back. The door slammed, wind chimes jangling violently. Silence in the coffee shop. The customers withdrew their gazes, but the atmosphere remained awkward. I stood there, back to Harper, body still a bit stiff. Mason. Harper's voice came from behind, soft. Are you okay? I turned back to meet her concerned eyes. No prying, no curiosity, just pure worry. Like a splash of warm water, putting out the fire of anger and embarrassment in my heart. I'm fine. I tried to smile but failed. Sorry you had to see that joke. What are you saying? She shook her head, pointing to the seat. Sit down. Coffee's getting cold. I sat back down, but had no mood to taste the coffee. Harper didn't press, just sat quietly with me. After a long while, she asked softly, that was, Miss Vance, I looked up sharply. How did she know? Harper seemed to see through my confusion, pressed her lips together, a bit sheepish. When you fell asleep that time, your phone screen lit up. There was a message. I accidentally saw the name. I closed my eyes. Yeah, I whispered. Harper chose her words. What are you going to do? What to do? What could I do? Contract over, money paid. We were settled long ago. She and I have nothing to do with each other. I heard myself say, voice a bit dry but very certain. Harper looked at me for a long time. Then she nodded gently. Okay, she said, voice soft but holding a firm strength. You say there's no relation, then there's no relation. She lifted her lukewarm coffee, took a sip, frowned, then smiled at me, eyes curving. Cold coffee tastes bad. Let's go. Look at books. Didn't you say there were rare ones? Looking at her smiling eyes, the stormy waves Elena's appearance had kicked up in my heart seemed to slowly subside. Okay, I said. We stood up, paid, and left the shop. Pushing the door open, the afternoon sun was perfect, spilling warmly over us. I instinctively looked back toward where Elena had gone. The street was empty. She was long gone. Only sunlight quietly covered the ground. I turned back and caught up with Harper. Harper walked beside me without speaking, just quietly walking. After a bit, she suddenly spoke, tone quite peaceful. That person, is she who you were with for those years? Yes. Looks pretty intense and rich. She kicked a pebble on the road. You used to like that type of woman, right? I didn't like her. I interrupted immediately, feeling I had to make this clear. It was just a job. I briefly explained what those 3 years were about. How the contract was signed, the acting, the monthly pay. When I got to that final night, I paused, skipping the kneeling part, just saying, contract was ending. Her family wanted me to marry her. She tore up the agreement in front of everyone, said I was just a rental. Harper listened, silent for a while. Oh, she just replied with one word. Then she turned to look at me, eyes clear. So now, is the contract expired? Expired long ago. Money settled? Settled. Then what are you annoyed about? She asked directly. Debts cleared, separate paths. She came looking today because she has no boundaries. Why are you hiding? I froze. Right, why was I hiding? What was I guilty of? Did what I had to, took what I earned. No that's. She was the one not letting go. I wasn't hiding. I claimed stubbornly. I just felt. It's bad luck. Harper snorted with laughter, dimples showing. If it's bad luck, then come soak up sun with me to clear it away. Come on, skip the books, sis is taking you for good food. Turn grief into appetite. She grabbed my arm and dragged me in another direction without room for argument. She led me down a small street to a nondescript but busy little diner. The barbecue ribs here are killer. Eat this, all worries gone. She ordered familiarly, getting me a portion too. When the food came, steaming hot, the ribs were braised to tenderness, sauce rich. I took a bite. The flavor was indeed solid. Harper ate until sweat beaded on her nose, looking satisfied. How is it? Didn't lie, right? Yeah, good. If it's good, eat more. She moved a meaty rib from her bowl to mine. Look how skinny you are. Warehouse work needs fuel. Gotta hold up. After eating, she said she needed to digest and dragged me to wander nearby. The skies slowly darkened. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Passing a small plaza, there was a jazz band playing, drums and saxophones echoing loudly. Harper suddenly stopped, eyes watching them, lighting up. Mason, she tugged my sleeve. Want to go jump around? My scalp tingled. Huh, I can't dance. Just move around, shake out the limbs. It's free. Her eyes curved a bit teasing. Coming? It's great stress relief. I looked at the people swaying to the music, then at her bright eyes. We blended into the crowd. The music was upbeat, the rhythm thumping. Harper actually knew a few steps, twisting to the beat quite well. I was stiff as a board, hands and feet not knowing where to go, standing there like a wooden stake. Watching my uncoordinated clumsiness, she laughed hard. Under the lights, her eyes crinkled up, dimples deep, whole person glowing. Watching her laugh, I suddenly felt. It wasn't a big deal. Those crappy things, those people, let them get lost. Right now, I just wanted to sway to this loud music. I tried moving a bit. Still awkward, but who cares? Harper danced over to me, grabbed my wrists, and led me in shaking around. Her hands were warm, music loud, surrounded by strangers immersed in the moment. I slowly relaxed, following the rhythm, moving my body randomly. No need to look good, no image to maintain. Sweating all over, stopping to pant. Harper's face was flushed, eyes bright as stars. Feel good. I panted, nodding. Good. Real good. Better than any alcohol or cigarettes. On the way back, the evening breeze blew on my sweaty body. A bit cool, but refreshing. Walking to the entrance of my alley, I stopped. Thanks for today. She waved her hand. For what? A meal and some wild dancing bought you off? You're too easy. I looked at her, didn't reply. The streetlight at the alley entrance was broken, light dim, but the light in her eyes was very bright. Harper. I called her name. Yeah. Me and her, it's really over. I didn't know why I had to say it again, but I just wanted her to know. Clean break. Absolutely no connection. She looked at me for a few seconds, then smiled. I know, she said. You've said it 800 times. She leaned in a little closer, looking up at me. The distance was close enough I could smell the faint, clean scent mixed with sweat on her. Mason, she lowered her voice, carrying a hint of a smile, and something else. Are you telling me this because you're afraid I'll misunderstand, or? She stopped, didn't finish. But I felt my heart skip a beat. The surroundings were quiet, only distant traffic noise. Her breath gently brushed my chin, a little ticklish. My Adam's apple bobbed, throat felt dry. Afraid you'll misunderstand, I guess. I heard myself say, voice a bit husky. She smiled again, stepping back a bit, eyes curving into crescents. All right, message received. She turned, waving back at me. Go on, get some sleep. Stop overthinking. She walked away with light steps, humming the tune from the plaza. I stood there watching her back disappear into the night, raised my hand, and touched my ear. It was burning. Heartbeat was a little fast. Elena blocked me right at the warehouse gate. I walked out after work and saw her leaning against her car, arms crossed, watching me. The manager peeked out, eyes darting between us, full of gossip. I pretended not to see, head down, walking past. Mason, she called me, voice not loud but piercing. Let's talk. Nothing to talk about. I didn't stop. Just 5 minutes. She followed, high heels click-clacking on the concrete. I'll leave after. I stopped, turning to face her. She didn't look good. Faint dark circles under her eyes, makeup unable to cover the exhaustion. But the look she gave me was still that condescending stubbornness. Miss Vance, I try to keep my tone peaceful. The contract is over. I didn't take a penny more or less. We are square. You pestering me like this is pointless. Square. She pulled the corner of her mouth. The smile was cold, and something else. Mason, 3 years. You say square, and it's square. Those 3 years were a job. I reminded her. You paid, I worked. Now the work is done. Work? She took a step forward, very close. That perfume wafted over. Smelling it now just made me dizzy. Mason, dare you say, in those 3 years, you didn't feel a single thing for me. Was all acting? I looked at her face inches away. This beautiful but always distant face I'd watched for 3 years. My heart didn't ripple at all. I even wanted to laugh a little. No, I said, ironclad. Not a bit. All acting. Thanks for the endorsement, boss. Her face went pale, staring into my eyes like she wanted to find traces of a lie. But I wasn't lying. For those 3 years, besides initial gratitude, then numbness, then final disillusionment, I had nothing else for her. Feelings? For a boss who measured everything in money and treated me like a rental item? I wasn't that pathetic. Good. Very good. She nodded, stepping back, eyes cold enough to freeze water. Mason, you're tough. I want to see how long you can stay tough. Her tone took on a trace of mockery, gaze sweeping over the dilapidated warehouse gate behind me. Working in a place like this, how much do you make? 3,000? 5. Enough to survive in this city. She stepped closer, lowering her voice, seductive yet threatening. Come back. Continue with me. Name your price. Much easier than this, much more dignified. What can that girl give you? I looked at her, suddenly feeling incredibly bored. Talking to her was like playing piano to a cow. No, more tiring. A cow just doesn't understand. She refused to understand, or rather, she only believed what she wanted to believe. What she gives me is none of your business. I couldn't be bothered to say more, turning to leave. Mason, her voice rose sharply, angry, with a trace of imperceptible panic. Don't be ungrateful. What do you think you are? Without me, you are nothing. Believe it or not, I can make sure you can't survive in this industry. My steps halted. I slowly turned back. The dim yellow light of the warehouse hit my face. I looked at her and smiled very slowly. Miss Vance, besides throwing money and using power to pressure people, do you know anything else? Make me unable to survive. Sure, go ahead. See if you crush me first, or if I starve first. Also, I chin lifted toward the alley entrance behind her. See that? Elena instinctively looked back. At the alley entrance, Harper stood there, quietly watching us. Don't know how long she'd been watching. She didn't come over, just stood there, figure quiet in the dim light. I turned back, looking at Elena's face, which had turned instantly ugly. The suffocation in my chest for days suddenly dissipated. What she can give me, you can never give. After saying that, I didn't look at her again, walking toward Harper. Behind me was dead silence. Then, the loud slam of a car door and the violent roar of an engine. The car almost brushed past me as it drove off, kicking up a cold wind. I didn't look back. I walked straight to Harper. She looked at me, then at the direction the car vanished, blinking. Done talking? Yeah, let's go. Let's go home. She didn't ask more, following beside me. After walking a bit, she suddenly said, "Just now, did she try to smash you with money?" "Yeah." "You refused?" "Yeah." "Why?" she asked, voice holding a bit of curiosity, but no other emotion. I thought about it and said, "Her money burns my hands. Your food sits right in my stomach." Harper froze, then laughed out loud, shoulders shaking. "Mason, you've gone bad. You know how to flirt now." She laughed enough, wiping the corner of her eye. "But I like hearing that." I smiled too. Not going back, just the truth. Story complete.